Just off the top, we had another great off season. I just want to thank all the staff that has boots on the ground with our players. Our players go back in their own markets, most of them. And lifestyle services with Ayanna Lawson, PR with Matt, our security team are handling a lot of player camps and appearances, and then medical and performance coaching staffs out on the road, working with the guys on their games and bodies, and that takes a lot of effort. I want to thank all the staff that did that. I also want to thank Clay and Sam for resourcing that. It allows us to be a 12-month program. So hope you guys had a great summer.
We'll open it up for questions.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Joe.
Wanted to ask you about Chet. Obviously, he was impactful when he came back from injury, but with a, I guess full off season, shortened off season for you guys. But how do you expect kind of him to? How can a full off season sort of help him even more so than when we last saw him?
Well, I think we saw last year. I think he did great work last off season and came into last season looking the way he did, which was very impressive. Obviously, the injury changed the course for last season, and he did an incredible job of hopping on a moving train and helping our team reach its ceiling last year. And so he's got a track record of productive off seasons. What that actually looks like, I try to stay pretty open to. I don't really predict anything. It's just the guys that are efficient and impactful are the ones that tend to have the runway for more, and he's clearly shown to be an efficient, impactful player despite only being a third-year player, and so we're excited about where that goes.
Were there things in those first 10 games before he got hurt that he was showing that maybe were slow to come back post-injury?
No, I was more referring to those 10 games relative to the previous season.
Okay.
I just think he's shown the ability to use an off season to improve. He breathes the game, and so he's a guy that if you give him time, he's going to get to work, and that's what he's done his entire life. It's what he's done this past off season.
Yeah, so Coach, you guys are obviously the defending champs. You signed your 3 top stars. You got all the TV appearances. Clearly, your positioning in the league as a team, from the outside looking in, has changed. Does that change anything about how you approach this process from a mental standpoint? The fact that you're defending champs, you got an established roster, everybody's gunning for you, you've got the national television appearances, all of that stuff.
The circumstances are always changing year to year, and even within the season. The challenges are always changing year to year, and in the season, we try to have a very consistent and stable approach to that. And we try to have things that are pretty timeless and that can transcend circumstances. And we emphasize those in all circumstances. We rely on those in all circumstances, and in the face of every challenge. This year's no different. The unpredictable circumstances and challenges that'll come up through the season, that's how we'll navigate them, as we always have.
Shay's a guy who just gets better every season. Obviously, we see what he does on the court, but can you kind of speak to just that behind-the-scenes work, the off-season grind that he goes through, and just how much, I guess, dedication he has to that part of his game?
It's a better question for him because a lot of his work is in the invisible spaces. He doesn't, he just does the work, and a lot of it is unseen. But he is deeply committed to being the best player and leader and person that he can be, and he puts the work in behind that. And improvement is a skill, and being able to improve kind of ahead of your improvement curve, so to speak, is a skill that he has displayed time and time again. And so he's got a great process, he's got great vision, and he puts the work behind that clearly. In terms of what that actually looks like, he's the only person that can really answer that accurately.
Coach, obviously, J-Dub went through his off-season surgery with his wrist, and then, recently a lot of videos have been coming out of him, working out, with his left hand, obviously, and, getting back to that. What are those conversations been like recently, leading into his ramp up, the return, and
Yeah, I think, a professional basketball player in the off-season, wakes up at the same time, does their PT, does their strength training, does their basketball work, once they get into the rhythm of the off-season, and sometimes does basketball work 2 times a day in his case. And the fact that he was rehabbing an injury didn't change his process in the offseason, which is impressive. It builds an unbelievable amount of fortitude and commitment and mental toughness to do that, even within the constraints. and he showed that ability. He's a professional basketball player, and even if it's in the face of a rehab, it doesn't change his off-season process. That was very impressive this year with him.
Barry?
Yeah, Mark, how has Mark Daigneault's life changed since winning the NBA title?
Not much, to be honest with you. Not much. You know, you're in the cycle of the season, cycle of the off season. You know, the season ended and we had the draft, we had summer league, we had to onboard new players. Players got into their off season stuff, and the majority, you know, the only changes my life's taken on is with our kids and our family. You know, we have a young family and they're growing, but that's been the most change that I've experienced.
No, people don't bother you more in town or recognize you, or people back home or any of that stuff?
Yeah, that's definitely happened the last couple of years, but that doesn't change your life. So.
Any, you've always talked about this group is uncommon in terms, I guess, of maturity and everything else. Any concerns, because a few more commercials coming their way, promos for the networks, things of that nature. Any concerns that you change anything about how you approach camp? Anything, or just like another camp, if we not one? Anything different about it?
Yeah, like I said, the circumstances and the challenges are always changing, you know, and a month into the season, the circumstances will change and the challenges will change, and that's just the flow of an NBA season, and you know, it's pretty unpredictable as to where that'll go. What is predictable is the solution to it and the things that we're going to rely on. You know, we've always relied on being very present. We've always relied on stacking the days. We've always relied on continuous improvement and an emphasis on the things that kind of transcend circumstances, and that's really where our focus has been and is and will continue to be.
And you've got a full roster back. You just won the title. How easy is it to say what we're working, or are you constantly looking to change? I mean, how much do you change or look to add, or with the roster was virtually the same players you had last year?
Yeah, a lot of the faces are the same. The team is always changing, you know, as the league evolves, as players evolve, as we evolve as a program. We audit, you know, every offseason. We audit player development. We audit the offense, the defense, our way of doing things. We're constantly looking for ways to improve. We're going to make those adjustments coming into the season and continuously look to improve all those things into the season. One thing that we have to caution against is assuming that anything from last year carries over. You know, we obviously did a lot of things really well last year, even in our process, and it's important that we get very present, rebuild those habits, and reinvest in those fundamentals, not take anything for granted, as we do every year.
Coach, you saw, you know, you guys locked up Chet and all three of the guys, obviously, but, you know, Chet, you know, you guys were able to lock up. You know, going for him not playing his rookie year and to see where, you know, obviously we've seen him grow on the court, but where would you say you've seen him grow most as like a leader, or even off the court as a you know, man in general over the last 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, we constantly try to encourage our guys to grow through their experiences. The NBA life is rich with experiences, and some are positive and some are challenging, and he's had his share of both. But the thing I'll say about Chet is, as well as many of our guys, but certainly Chet, is he's grown through his experiences. You know, he's been in some tough spots, obviously, and faced some challenges young in his career, and he's grown through those. And then he's also had pretty potent success and shown to be very high impact, and he grows through that. You know, and so that's skill. It's really a skill. You know, to be able to grow through whatever's going on is how you improve. And that's why he's continued to improve, and that's why we're so optimistic about, you know, his future, as well as, like I said, many of the other guys on the team.
Mark, this morning we got the news about Kenrich having a procedure on the left knee. I know you can't tell us a lot of detail, but if you have anything more than that, or what happened to him, can you tell us that?
No, I mean, he's having a procedure today, and we'll update you guys as appropriate, but we have nothing more than what we released.
Mark, during the finals, you talked a little bit about fans coming up to you and having different ideas. What's the worst and best idea that you've heard from, like, a fan?
I can't recall right off the bat. I mean, the fans in town, the one thing I'll say is, to Barry's question and that question, everyone's been just so supportive of the team. I've always said the fan base puts the wind at our backs, and I'm so excited that our fans are as excited as they are about this team, and it gives us a great sense of responsibility as we start another season. But we certainly appreciate our fans. Can't wait to get back around them in the game setting.
This will be the last one for Coach, and then we're going to bring Shea in.
It really felt like Dub kind of leveled up as a defensive player last season. From a coaching standpoint, what does he bring kind of in a unique way as a defender that you don't see from a lot of guys?
Well, the first thing I'll say is he's always kind of had that level. You know, I think his first start might have been against Jaylen Brown, guarding Jaylen Brown, which is a tall assignment. So I think he showed that off the bat, but his versatility is always what stands out, and the game is dynamic and the league is dynamic, increasingly so. And so you need dynamic players on both ends of the floor, and that's what he is. And he's just, he can handle a lot of different assignments, and he really unlocks what we can do out there, both schematically and with lineups, because of just how flexible and versatile he is. And it's one of the most impactful parts of his game and what he brings to the team.
Thank you,
I'll
Coach.
see you guys this week.